This is a three-part video series to review program evaluation. We'll be looking at levels of rigor in program evaluation, focusing mainly on what special type called impact evaluations. Before we get into the details of impact evaluation, I'd like to just briefly discuss what is a program or project evaluation. Then we'll discuss what is impact evaluation. And as many people usually ask, how can impact be evaluated? And then finally, why is measuring or trying to do an impact evaluation important? So what is project evaluation? And as some can probably already tell, I'm going to use the terms project and program evaluation interchangeably, but we'll primarily focus on project evaluation. So what is a project evaluation? At its simplest, an evaluation is just merely the process of determining the worth and or the value of a project or a program. Evaluations are just the products, the reports, the documents that come out of that process of determining worth or value. Now that we reviewed in general what program or project evaluation is, let's focus in on the term impact. Of course, all of us say that our projects and our interventions activities have the impact on the lives of our beneficiaries, and of course they do. But in the field of evaluation, the term impact has a very specific meaning. In the field of evaluation, impact means the planned changes in the well-being of individuals, or households, or groups, or communities that can be attributed to a particular intervention, or a set of interventions, or a particular project or program. The key word to focus in that definition is attributed. Impact is associating any of the planned change with your activities or your interventions. And so it's the issue of attribution. Can we say that what we did, the activities that we held, actually contributed or produced that change? We've reviewed what project and program evaluation is, and we have defined what impact is. Let's put the two of them together and try to describe what is impact evaluation. Now, impact evaluation is determining if and to what extent change, and we'll put here a result level indicator, can be attributed to a particular project, or we should put here also activities, program, or policy, and if that amount of change was cost effective. You probably noticed one of the critical issues is understanding net change or effect. And let's make sure we clearly define it. Net change is that amount of change that was produced only by the project and not other influences or factors. We want to emphasize change only produced by the project. Another way to understand or approach net change or net effect is to ask the question in the reverse or just opposite. And that is, what, if any, change or effect would have been observed in the project group at the time of the evaluation if the project had not been implemented? This is also known as the counterfactual. So how do we go about answering the question, what change would have occurred in our project group over the project time if the project had not been implemented? Going back to our example of school enrollment, how much would school enrollment increased if the project had not been implemented? And the other one, how much increase would there have been in the knowledge of HIV/AIDS transmission among youth if the project had not occurred? The two basic ways that evaluation specialists have identified to answer the counterfactual is either the use of a control group or a comparative group. Identifying the control or comparison group provides us the benefit of being able to measure not only in our treatment group change, but also measuring change in this control or this comparative group, which will help us answer that counterfactual question. That is, what amount of change would have occurred in a group that did not have the intervention. Now, of course, it'll be crucial how we select that control group or that comparative group. So there are two basic approaches to selecting the control or comparison group. The first approach is using randomization. Randomization is generally associated with a control group or what is called an equivalent group. And randomization is used as a best way to really prevent systematic error or bias in selecting a group. So the practical way this might occur is, for example, if a project was going to be implemented, let's keep it simple, let's just say one community, that we would number all the houses and we would randomly select those households that would participate in the project and those households that would not participate in the project. However, throughout the life of the project, we would go ahead and measure all our relevant indicators at the baseline, midterm, and inline in both those households that were participating and also in the households that were not participating. Either due to practical considerations or ethical reasons, most projects don't use randomization as a way to identify a control group. And often donors already identify the participants in the sense of targeting criteria. So randomization is not always possible and donor accepted. So another process or approach would be to use what is called a non-equivalent group identification. And that is using criteria other than randomization to identify the group. And that could be through trying to find out those that are as similar as possible based on certain characteristics, such as demographic, economic, or social. And that we select that group saying that they are as similar, or as close to similar as those who are participants in our interventions. And we will study that group to compare at the baseline, midpoint, and evaluation with those that are participating in our project. Now let's say our project has selected either an equivalent group or non-equivalent group, that are either a control or comparative group for our project participants. And we have done the baseline, and let's say we're at the inline. How do we actually go about then calculating or estimating that net effect? That is, what amount of change was due to our project interventions. To estimate the net impact of a project or program is done using the double difference. It's also known as the difference in differences method. This method requires that there was measurement at the beginning of a project and at the end of a project, and that the measurement occurred not only among our participants, but these measurements also occurred in that control or comparative group. So what exactly does double difference or difference in difference mean, and how is it done? As I mentioned earlier, is that in both our participants or treatment group and in our comparison group, we collect data at both the baseline and at the inline. So the first difference is looking at the amount of change that occurred between the baseline and the inline in our participants, and then also looking at the change from the baseline to the inline in our comparison group. So this constitutes the first difference. The second difference now involves taking the amount of change that occurred in our participants and compare it with the amount of change that occurred in our control group. This second difference then becomes the estimation of the net effect of the project intervention. Now I know the series has gone a little fast, but to keep the file size down, it has to go relatively quickly. And this first series has been more theoretical and abstract, but it was important to cover the issues and become aware of them, and also to cover the terminology used in impact evaluation. The next series will be more practical illustrations of calculating the first difference, particularly in our participants, and the first difference in a control group, and then estimating that net impact. We'll also be reviewing 8 different types of impact evaluation designs, and then looking at an early childhood development project that tried to estimate the cost effectiveness of their interventions. So I hope you join me in version 2 of impact evaluation.